In today's episode, we're talking fat loss drugs, fat loss supplements, and all the crazy stuff we've seen along the way. Welcome to Faith, Freedom, and Fitness, the F3 podcast.
Welcome to Faith, Freedom, and Fitness, the podcast where God, government, and gluten collide. Introducing your host, John Turk, a former police officer, fitness cover model, and the real-life inspiration behind Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. He is joined by Michael Wayne Foster, a former school teacher, actor, and model who's graced the covers of over 800 romance novels. Get ready for the F3 podcast.
John Boy.
Mikey.
Yeah. Well, here we are. We're back at it again. And today we got a lot to talk about because if you notice, like, especially in your training career, like, what are the first thing that everyone comes up to you and talks about? I need to lose fat.
Yeah, everybody. That's the first thing. That's the main reason everybody comes to a trainer is because they want to lose weight. You know, it's either because the doctor told them to, or they're trying to get ready for an event, or they're like, you know, an aging professional and they want their body back. So those are the most common.
Or how about
why?
How about this one? Where I was from in Michigan, it would always be this is the way it always worked. I guess I'm kind of throwing my hometown under the bus a little bit, but most of the guys would go get a job working down to the Fords plant, and they'd be busting out of high school, you know, with overtime, making over $100,000 a year. Of course, they get married right away. So, like, you know, when I'm showing back up on the scene after college, I was 22, 23. Everyone's already either married, or by that time they're married, divorced with a couple of kids. So the guys were right about that time getting divorced. And, you know, after they're married for a couple of years, they put on the pounds, you know, they much like Stallone in Rocky III, they've lost the eye of the tiger. They spent the last few years, you know, drinking beer, eating French fries, dipping them in ranch dressing, the whole shebang. They're out of weight, they're out of shape, and then they're like, man, I got, you know, now that they're single again, they're like, I got to get back in shape. So it's like they literally want to get back in shape just so they can go to the bars and be attractive to the other sex. So that was
yep. So, yeah, that's
and then
common. I mean,
totally, and every snake oil salesman in the supplement industry is like, and we've got a fat loss supplement for you, you know?
Yeah, it's they got those also with how we'll probably bring this up later, but you know, a lot of these supplement companies tout that they get self-tested by, you know, this company that will, you know, tell you that they do have the ingredients they proclaim to have. And so one of them is called Consumer Labs. I'm sure you've heard of them. And they supposedly randomly test a lot of these supplement companies to make sure they put in their product what they say they do. And a lot of them add things to their product that they don't tell us about, right? Which we can talk about some of those things. Do you remember Hot Rocks?
Do I remember Hot Rocks?
Yeah.
Dude, the first supplement that I ever repped, I guess you could say, is when I'd go in and do those demos was Hot Rocks. That was the one that they'd come in and they'd be like looking at the bottle, what's adenyl pyrophosphoric acid disodium? And that was Hot Rocks. And, that was the first thing I ever sold at GNC's. And I do believe now that I'm taking this back to like 2003. But I don't remember that one having a lot of stimulants in it. That was just like a whole different ballgame. I never remember taking Hot Rocks and getting jacked up. So that one was one of the first like non-stimulant thermogenics that I remember. Am I correct on this?
Yeah, that one is. But back in the day, there was another one too that they actually put testosterone in. And I can't remember. It was probably around 1979 when the first real supplements started coming out. And it was actually I remember all the guys in the gym were raving, you got to take this stuff. And it tastes really good. It was chocolate and peanut butter was the one flavor. And after a while I took it, I'm like, holy cow, I feel like this stuff works, you know? And so for like 6 months I was taking it. I felt really good, you know, and all the guys in the gym were taking it. And then all of a sudden the guy that owned the gym comes in, Tommy's like, hey man, they pulled it off the shelves. They actually put testosterone in it. And everyone's like, no wonder this stuff worked, you know? Man. I mean, you know, it was the early days of the supplement companies. You know, right now they're getting away with doing things they're not supposed to. Can you imagine in the beginning?
No, man.
Who knows what we would take in our bodies.
I remember in the 90s, like, because I got into it in like the 90s and the early 2000s, and it was the Wild West. I mean, if you look at the supplement labels, And for those people listening that are like, if you want a little tip, if you see proprietary blend and it's got like 20 different ingredients in it,
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
know what, I mean, basically it could have like, let's say it'll be like 20 ingredients. One of them's caffeine. They could have like 200 mgs of caffeine in there, 2 milligrams
yep,
of everything else, and you take it, you're like, wow, I feel great. You know, you just had 2 cups of coffee, you feel wired, but all the other stuff that's in there that's allegedly burning fat is just minuscule doses, you know. So it's, I
yeah,
would, the first thing I'll say is once again, anything John and I talk about today, you know, make sure you get with your physician first so they can tell you what they don't know, which when it comes to
yeah,
supplement industry is a lot. But
yeah, yeah.
you know, so we're not here to give medical advice. We're here to tell you what our story is, what we've learned along the way. And I'm here to tell you, if you see a proprietary blend on the back of a label, run the other way, because that means they
Yeah.
are pixie dusting it. And
Yeah.
no
Yeah. You know,
bueno.
I mean, what's crazy is a lot of them, when you look at certain supplements and you know, look at the back of them, and they'll always say like natural flavors. Well, you know, arsenic is a natural flavor or natural substance, right? I mean, who knows what is in
Right.
that? They don't tell you exactly what's in it. They just say that. So you could be taking anything at that point when that's put on the label. I mean, if some of it's
Oh,
proprietary, they don't have
absolutely.
to disclose what it is, but it's,
Yep.
it can be frightening if you think about it. I mean, what could actually happen to you? So, yeah, there's
Well,
a
I
lot
mean,
of it out there, bud.
there is. Well, let's start with like the king of the, let's start with fat loss supplements before we get into drugs. And I remember back in the day, I remember like right when I got out of college and I started going to the local clubs in Toledo, Ohio. I remember one time there was like a bouncer standing outside and I walked up to him and I was like, said something about working late. He's like, yeah, I got to be up all night or whatever. I'm like, you're the kind of guy that's probably taking Rip Fuel. This is probably 98-ish.
Rip fuel. Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
literally pulled a bottle of Rip Fuel out of his pant pocket. And the girl that I was there with looked at me and he's like, how'd you know that? I'm like, because every guy that I can tell works out is probably taking Rip Fuel. So that was,
Yeah.
you know, everybody knows Hydroxycut, Rip Fuel, which was the supplement before Hydroxycut that everybody was on. And it
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
basically what they were doing is the supplements, the fat loss supplements, that, you know, were breaking out there right around the late 90s, you know, actually
Right.
mid to late 90s to the mid 2000s was the ECA stack, the ephedrine, caffeine, aspirin stack. So
Yeah, yeah.
it was like 25 mgs of
Do you know why?
ephedrine.
Do you know why you stacked aspirin with it?
Yeah, for the blood flow.
Yeah. Well, the blood flow, but you know why? Because
No.
you can have a stroke from the ephedrine. That's
Oh
what
yeah.
can happen. So people
Yeah.
don't realize they make you take aspirin because it thins your blood,
Hmm.
and when you take ephedra, it increases your blood pressure. And if you're someone that might have, you know, artery issues and you don't even know it, they always said, "Well, throw an aspirin in there for good measure," right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
supposedly, you know, a lot of people were misled that it's going to help you burn fat, but it was really to help you not clot. So yeah, it's crazy when you look at a lot of the things that, you know, people did, and we didn't even really know why we were doing it. You know, it's like
Well,
the whole thing is nuts.
it was insane. I mean, literally, it was. And the thing of it is everyone talks about like, oh, you know, the wild, wild west. It wasn't regulated. It wasn't regulated. I mean,
Right.
the first time I ever saw this stuff was, do you remember the truckers, the truck stop stuff? They'd have
Yeah, yeah,
those
yeah, yeah,
mini thins. Remember mini thins?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So for those of you listening, John and I are totally dating ourselves right now. But if you're probably over 40-ish, you might know this
yeah.
stuff. So mini thins, I remember I would take at college if I had to pull an all-nighter, and I remember my hair was tingling, and that was before. So there's a difference between the drug ephedrine hydrochloride and then the herbal version of it, which was ephedra,
Right.
you know. And
Yeah.
that was just straight up ephedrine hydrochloride. That was the good stuff back in the day, you know, if you got that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you know, so take that, the caffeine, the aspirin, stack it together, and that was your fat loss stack. But then I think it was a wrestler that died when that happened, because, you know, wrestlers are always trying to cut weight. And I
You're
believe
talking about like a collegiate wrestler, or are you talking
yeah,
about
I
a pro
believe it was a
wrestler?
collegiate wrestler. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's when the beginning of the ephedra ban started. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, man, I remember, you know, you go to the Arnold Classic, the Olympia, and for those that have never been, it's just a giant trade show, and all of the
Mm-hmm.
different supplement companies would have like those you know, where you go get like remember like Kmart or Walmart, whatever, you go get like
Yeah.
the Kool-Aid, like the big things of Kool-Aid that are mixing.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It was like those full, like, you got fruit punch, you got orange, you got grape, all the different flavors of their pre-workout drinks were just loaded with ephedra. And you're going
Mm-hmm.
around and there's 300 booths at the Arnold Classic, and you're stopping by everyone taking a shot of their pre-workout
Yeah.
drink. I mean,
Yep.
brother, we should be dead, you know?
Yeah. Yo, man, you know, it's what's crazy is I look back at, like you were bringing up, the Hydroxycut, and I remember, I mean, I love that stuff because when I was doing a lot of the fitness modeling, I would take it. And I'm like, wow. And then I used to go to this place in Venice and get it all the time. And I got to know the guy. Actually, I walked in and I had been on the cover of Muscle Fitness at this point. And the guy recognized me and he goes, hey, man, he goes, if you need anything, just let me know. I'll get it for you. I said, you know what? I said, I heard Hydroxycut, they're taking out the ephedra now and they're not making it. He goes, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. I got you covered. And I go, look at him like this. I go, well, I need some now. How can I get some? He goes, sit tight. And he walks in back. He comes out with a box. He goes, let me know how many you need. And I look at him and I said, how often can I get this? He goes, whenever you want it. He goes, we know the owner. And they're still going to make it on the side, but they're going to put the regular one in the market. They know a lot of the bodybuilders want it, So at least this was the guy told me, right? And so I grabbed it. And I mean, that stuff was the bomb until they took that out of it. And, I mean, I think we should preface everything we're talking about with a little disclaimer because just everybody out there, Mike and I are not doctors. We're talking about stories and things that we went through. Always talk to your doctor. Always talk to a good health professional that can give you guidance on how you're going to lose weight or what you're going to do. So all we're telling you about are, stories and things that you can look into. But don't just do something based on what we say or what someone else on the internet says. Always see your physician or another healthcare worker. So, but anyways, going back to the Hydroxycut.
Can I throw this in there though, real quick? Real quick,
Yeah.
let me throw this in because the healthcare physician and the healthcare person definitely knows what's best for you. That's why you should listen to him. Like, for example, you go to your health. I was talking about I wanted to lose some weight. The first thing they do is tell you to jump on Ozempic. So they really know about your health. Don't they?
Yeah, right, right.
We need to CYA. We need to cover our gluteus maximus. But at the same time, do I think doctors are jackasses and idiots? Absolutely, I do. And I'm married to one. And she'd be the first one to tell you, we don't know this stuff. All right. Like my wife is an anesthesiologist. Like, I know that. Doctors know how to put you on antibiotics. But if you go to them and talk about fat loss, they're going to be like, just do more cardio maybe and don't eat as much and take Ozempic. And I'm like, gotcha. So,
So what we should talk about real quick is like anybody that's going to start a weight loss program, first of all, you can find out if your metabolism slowed down. What I used to do all the time is whenever I started my diet, I would take my morning temperature with one of those infrared thermometers in my ear. And then I would see where my morning temperature was. And in general, if you're below like 97.8, you've already got a little bit of a slow metabolism. But whatever you're at, you're going to be probably 97.8 to like 98.5 or something like that. 98.6 is a normal. So if you're in that range, document it because each time you lower your calories within 24 to 48 hours, retake your ear thermometer and see where your morning body temperature is because it could be slowing down based on the calories that you're eating. So that's the thing I would start out with because first of all, you got to determine if your thyroid's slow. And if you're below 97.8, you might have a thyroid issue and go to the doctor and get it looked at. And you can get all these issues resolved before you start putting all this time into dieting and supplements and things like that. So even there's a lot of things you can do with supplements, which we can talk about later that help your thyroid. Like selenium's one of them, which is in a lot of Brazil nuts. Selenium helps your thyroid hormones function properly. So I just think that before you start any program, we just discussed the doctors. It's good to go to them. And I would just get an overall blood panel because that's going to tell you what your blood is doing and what your hormone system's doing and really get you off on the right foot in the right direction instead of wasting months of time dieting or trying all these supplements and nothing happens when all in all you had a bad thyroid or some kind of endocrine disruption like, too much estrogen or things like that. So I just wanted to preface everything we're going to say with that. That'll help people.
I'm glad you brought up the fact that, like taking your temperature, because this is a conversation I had many a time with a friend of mine that had a supplement company out in California. And he would always tell me, he's like, hey, I'm like, what do you think I should eat? He's like, what foods make you sweat? And I'm like, huh? And he's like, remember, calories are thermic. When you take a calorie, that is giving you its energy expenditure and it will raise your temperature, So he was
tequila.
Like, right? Tequila makes John sweat. We know this. Yeah. But yeah, he was always telling me, he's like, try to eat foods that make you sweat because he's like, that'll raise your thing. Speaking of which, okay, so going back to crazy stories, do you remember that drug that Dan Duchesne was pushing back in the mid 90s, that DNP? Remember that? The Underground Body Opus by Dan Duchesne, with German bodybuilder Hans Hopstaken on the front cover. Why do I know this? Dude,
you know your books, buddy.
I had an autographed copy and some schmuck stole it from me, man. So
yeah,
but that guy was.
This is how much I love this book, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
The inside cover, because I would loan it to people and I wanted it back. I'm like, dude, I can't buy this book anywhere anymore. They don't even sell it. I looked online and you could get a used copy, but it's probably falling apart. But the thing was banned for a long time just because it's got so much stuff in there about drugs and everything else. So it's really good.
It is absolutely radical. It is for those of you listening. If you remember the supplement Ultimate Orange, we used to call it Agent Orange. Dan Duchesne's the guy that came out with that. So
yeah, this is good too. This Extreme Muscle.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a really good book. So that's another one I think that if people can find it, could get some good information out of.
Yeah, if it's at your local library.
Yeah, highly doubtful.
But yeah, so Duchesne with that. You remember it was at DNP, and it was dinitro. I should know the name of it. Dinitro. I forgot exactly what it was, but dinitrophosphate, believe it was. But anyway, they called it chemical exercise. And it literally and I know in that book that you just showed me, he would talk about this can be made with basic pool cleaning ingredients. It was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's like people are taking this stuff, and what it did is it shot their body temperature up. So if you could hang out in an area, maybe 101, 102-ish degrees, okay, you're going to sit there and you're just going to sweat by doing nothing. But the problem is that in our culture, if a little's good, a lot's better. People would take too much of that. And I actually knew a guy who took too much of it, and his body temperature went up to I think it was 105, to the point that they had to take him to the hospital. And it was a thing, because you could go into a coma from that. So it was so
they got a section here. Stuff. Yeah, he's got a section on thermogenics, and I'm looking for that in here. But what they do is in his thermogenics ones, the main ones that he's discussing is ephedrine, which we know raises the temperature. And the other one is caffeine, which also similar to ephedrine, raises it. And the other one is, can you guess what it is?
Clenbuterol.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you remember that one? That one's actually is pretty good. And it also helps you gain a little muscle. It's very anabolic, but it only works for 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. And it's I get an interesting story about that. I had a friend, just a girl, and I noticed she was getting really lean, and we were talking one day. We were sitting there, and as she would talk, she would go, and I'd go, look at her, and one time I go, what the hell are you doing? I mean, why do you do that? She goes, do what? And all of a sudden her bottom lip would shake, and I go, something's going on, man. I said, you're shaking and you're stuttering. You look like, Shemp from the Three Stooges, right? And she goes, okay, I got to tell you, I'm taking this new thing called clenbuterol, and I'm experiencing all these weird things. I'm like, well, how much are you taking? And she was taking triple what anyone should be taking because she didn't know, which won't kill you, but you're definitely going to get some heart palpitations out of it. It's basically like a bronchial dilator that they use for pigs. That's originally what it was for. It was for pigs.
It's basically asthma medication is what it is.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And you're right, because it's a beta agonist. Let's not get too technical. Put it long story short, your body gets used to it really quick. So you got to come off it. And then the old trick the bodybuilders would do is they'd take clenbuterol for 2 weeks, and then they'd come off it and take cold medicine, because it was the what is the active ingredient in cold medicine?
It's usually ephedra.
No, not ephedra. The nighttime stuff. What is the nighttime stuff?
Sudafed.
That's what it is. Like that and Sudafed. Yeah, they would take that, and they claimed that would upregulate the receptors, so they'd be able to take it again. But it was but I mean, if you think about all these fat loss drugs that people were taking, like clenbuterol, and what they would do is, and I know you know this, they'd stack it with thyroid. So they'd stack it with T3. Right. And for those of you listening that don't know this, like John mentioned, testosterone was in the old supplements and all this stuff. Guys that take testosterone that talk about testicular atrophy and all this, at the end of the day, the boys will always come back. They do respond. You know what I mean? But if you burn out your thyroid, that's not coming back, and you're going to have to take medication for the rest of your life. So what they would do is especially, do you remember the Galaxy competitors back in the early 90s? They were the, you
No.
remember the fitness? Okay, they were the fitness girls before Fitness Olympia and
Oh
all
yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
They
yeah.
were
Sure,
like,
sure,
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I
they'd
do
get up there
remember.
and they'd do their modeling thing, and then they'd also have to do
Hmm.
like the obstacle course and all that stuff. But like
Yeah,
all those
yeah,
girls
yeah,
were in incredible shape, but a lot of them were taking clenbuterol stacked with T3. They'd stay on it for too long, and they would completely destroy their body's metabolism moving forward.
yeah,
And most of
yeah.
these girls
Hmm.
now, if they're still alive, weigh like 300 pounds. It's insane. Because if your
Yeah,
thyroid goes, I mean, that's your metabolic, command center. If that's not
yeah.
there any longer, it's over. So they
Hmm.
just burn out their thyroids, and now they're
Hmm.
huge. So, yeah, for those of you
Yeah.
listening, if you see any stuff when it comes to thyroid, that's the one thing you don't want to mess with.
Yeah, that's what they look at the TSH for. Even when you're on thyroid medicine, they don't want you to get too high to where your TSH thyroid stimulating hormone is like almost non-existent, because then your thyroid's just basically going to blow out and be
Yeah.
done. So you got to keep that TSH level up a little bit so your body is still using it to stimulate. But yeah, there's a lot of people. I mean, some of the stuff they do with these drugs is just insane. That was the whole reason I got out of bodybuilding. I just to see what my friends were doing, and not to mention steroids, but then you started getting all the other type of hormones in there, growth hormone and insulin people started messing with. And at that point I was like, I'm not into the sport that much. A trophy doesn't mean that much to me. I'm not going to be a pro by any means. I don't like it that much. And yeah, dude, it's just some people just don't care. Like if you look at some of these influencers now, they'll do anything just to get some views and be the person with the most requests or the most followers, and you're just jeopardizing your health so much, and you're not thinking of the end game. The end game is, what are you going to look like and feel like when you're 50, 60 years old,
I
even
know.
past that, right? Some of
I
these
know.
guys, especially the bodybuilders, died young. So anybody
Oh,
out there listening, just know
a,
that there's
a
side
bunch of
effects,
them.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was crazy. I went through. I found a thing down at the house. I found a big box I had with all like my old 8x10 autograph bodybuilding things, and I'm going
Hmm.
through it. It was one after the other. Like I pull out, like I'm going to drop names
Yeah.
a lot of people might not know, but I'm like, Paul DeMaio, Mike Matarazzo, Nasser El Somebody, all these. I'm going through a list of all these guys that had signed me
Yeah.
out, like, to Mike, thanks for coming to
Yeah.
the show or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so many of them that are dead. But I mean, if you think
Yeah.
about the drugs that they were playing with, and even that, around the era when I first got into it, I mean, you got DNP talking about that raises your body temperature to the fact where you could go into a coma if you take too much. You had,
Hmm.
like you were just talking about or we were just talking about the thyroid, destroys your
Yeah.
thyroid. Ephedra, one of the reasons ephedra was banned was because they used that to convert it into meth.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you remember that there was that Mickey Rourke movie Spun, where he's going to places and buying all the like the trucker pills, the energy
Yeah. Yeah.
pills.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Dude,
people do. I mean, I was dating a girl that would do that. We would get on the road and she'd go to this truck stop, go to this. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I got to stock up on my ephedra. I'm running low. I'm like, holy cow. And then we would go to another state, like in Indiana, and she'd go in a truck stop and she'd come back in. Oh, I forgot my ID. Go, what do you need your ID for? They take my ID, because what they do is they would report people to the FDA or the DEA, actually, if they were buying too much of ephedra. Because what happens was, why they did that? Because not because of the ephedra itself, because people were cutting cocaine with that ephedra. So that was the whole
yep.
reason it began on the ban list, because it became part of the cocaine cutting.
It's funny you said that. Do you remember? Well, I was talking. A friend of mine was a store manager at GNC, and I was talking to her about this, and I was like, because at the time I was trying to do like a nootropic stack, right? And I was looking
Mm-hmm.
for I call it a inositol, some call it an inositol, but I
Yeah.
was looking for the inositol, and I'm like, where's like the big, like the 1,000 gram of it? She's like, we keep it behind the counter, and
Mm-hmm.
I asked her why, and she said because that's what they used to cut cocaine with. And I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like, wow. So ephedra, cocaine, and what was the other one?
Yeah.
Inositol. That's what they're using. I was like, that is crazy. So
Yeah.
actually, here I'll tell you a quick one. As long as we're telling story time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
when I was doing my supplement sales, and when I was a teacher, what they would do is, because I'd have the summer off, I would do like a
Mm-hmm.
whole big circle. So I'd go like all through Michigan. I'd go down to Chicago. I was like I think West Dundee, Lombard. I think there was
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Rockford.
Lombard was
All
right
these
by
different.
me, actually.
Yeah. So I was all
Lombard
that
was
whole
right by
area.
me. Yeah.
Yep. I go into the malls. There'd always be a GNC and all this. But when I got to the western part of the state in Michigan, over by Battle Creek and Kalamazoo area, I go into this GNC, and I'm making small talk with the manager, and I said something. I'm like, so, and this is right when ephedra was just getting banned, And I was like, do you guys have any ephedra here? And he's like, oh no, man, we haven't had that here for a while. I was like, no kidding. He's like, yeah, man, because the Amish. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Wait, what are we talking about here? I'm like, you talking about the people that churn butter and drive the horse and buggies like Amish? And he's like, yeah, Amish. And I'm like, why would Amish want ephedra? I mean, are they trying to farm faster? And he's like, no, they did a sting, and all of these, well, not all of them, but a lot of the Amish barns turned out were where they were cooking meth. And I was literally that blew my mind. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I was like, because when I think of the Amish, they sell their cheese and, their furniture and butter and whatnot.
Yeah.
You don't think that it's like, hey, man, I got to score some meth. Let's go get with the Amish,
Yeah, right.
But I guess it just goes to show you that. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's real common with a lot of Amish. I think certain communities, like, for example, start hurting and they need money. And instead of trying to do it the old fashioned way of we're hard working at, sometimes you get bad apples that start, doing things they shouldn't do. And before you know it, other people see the money coming in and you create this corruption, right? I mean, look at our government, how corrupt it is. Doge, we'll talk about that on one of the episodes, what they're finding. Man, it's incredible.
Oh,
but
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But I would be, John, I'm glad that you were a cop, because I would be a terrible cop. Because, like, if anybody asked me, all right, we got to do a meth sting, like, let's start with the Amish barn, I would be like, what? I would never even think that,
Let's start with the Amish barn.
Right. Yeah, let's go rough up some Amish, man. They're probably up to no good. But no, what I was going to say is it just goes back to the fact that all of these fat loss chemicals that we're talking about that people were ingesting, like, at insane levels, are, some of it's made from meth. Some will put you in a coma. Some will give you a heart attack. Some will cause a stroke. I mean, it is crazy that this is the effect that people will do, where at the end of the day, and please, by all means, consult with your doctor if this is a good idea or not, but how about have a good diet and exercise and maybe show a little bit of control at the table? Let's start with that. I know that's crazy. I'm a radical guy. But it's like, instead of taking these drugs and that is absolutely our culture. Like, I don't want to put in the hard work, man. I'm just going to take a pill. And because of that, I think that, tell me if you agree with this or not, the fat loss industry, when it comes to supplements, is the most lucrative, because first of all, it is not as heavy, like the weight. It's not like a big tub of protein powder where it's like, all right, we got to ship 2 pounds, that shipping is going to cost something. It's like, here's a little bottle. It's cheap to ship. It's cheap to make. Boom. And you feel it if it's got enough caffeine or whatever the stimulant is,
Yeah, I mean, the weight loss industry, what they focus on basically is one thing, lipolysis, and that's burning fat, right? And there's so many other aspects to losing weight. You have to, number one, you want to inhibit metabolic syndrome, which is, the loss of insulin sensitivity. And that's the biggest reason, because we're such a carb inundated society. After a while, you're just secreting so much insulin, it becomes insensitive. So that's the number one factor besides burning fat. And then you got alcohol, which inhibits the liver. And then the liver is where lipolysis occurs. So when you drink alcohol, you inhibit the liver, so you don't burn fat as much. You slow the liver down. It has to process the alcohol faster, so you burn less fat. And the kidneys, if you don't drink enough water too, they help out the liver. And then, so now you're drinking alcohol, it's dehydrating, your kidneys are working harder, your liver's working harder, you're never going to burn fat. That's why you see people with beer bellies, not only the calories, but they got giant beer bellies, right? And then you have appetite suppression, which no one ever talks about. You have things that enhance your mood. You have stuff that reduces cravings. You have all these things that come into play. And then the other thing is doing the caloric restriction properly, so you don't restrict the amount of muscle you lose. I mean, there's so many aspects to weight loss that people don't even talk about. And then you got to think about, okay, are my calories too low? If they're too low, you drive up cortisol. Cortisol makes your metabolism slow down. It holds more fat. It's good to have cortisol in your body. You need it to live, but too much is bad for you. And that's why people get belly fat and things like that. So the whole reason you started a diet was to lose your belly fat, and then you drop your calories too low, you secrete all this cortisol and you gain more belly fat. So, I mean, there's so much more to weight loss that people don't understand. And they all think, just give me this pill. This company says I'll lose weight. And it's not. It's like exercise. It's like doing the right diet, doing the right calories, having the right mood, the right appetite suppression. I mean, so much of it is timing and just everything else. And no one ever talks about that. It's always, what can I do? What pill can I use? No one wants to put in the work anymore. And that's why our society's become so lazy, because, and myself included, everyone's on the phone getting their 15-second stimulation from a YouTube video or an Instagram video. And the same thing applies when they go to do their diet. I want a pill. What can I do? I want it fixed, right? And nobody wants to work anymore. And the old days for when we grew up it's kind of gone. And I just feel bad for the kids nowadays, because between technology, COVID, what it did, it destroyed the youth. They've lost 2 years of their social, development, being locked inside with a mask on over there, all that garbage. And, not to mention what COVID did to a lot of people's metabolism. Now they got long COVID, just the vaccine now. I mean, did I say that word? Are we going to get banned now?
You did. You did say it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, dude, I mean, so many things are working against the body's ability to burn fat that they all have to be addressed, and they never are. It's like, give me a pill. I want a pill.
Oh, and and the things that we touched on before, in some of our test run episodes here, we talked about like estrogens and how high estrogen can cause extra body fat. And I mean, we are loaded with environmental estrogens. God only knows what they're putting in the drinking water, other than fluoride and everything else, which we're taking showers in. Our largest organ in the body is the skin. That's absorbing whatever's going on there. I mean, it's like, I was talking to a friend the other day. I think I'm going to get hardcore, John, when it comes this summer and my suntan stuff. Like Karina, just like you, Julia, and Karina, whenever you come out here, always do the that zinc oxide, so it looks like the ghost of John Turk. Yeah, there's the ghost of my wife and the Turk.
What's Ricky say to you? He says that I'm a vampire. Julia and I are vampires.
He's like,
convinced.
Man, I don't think that John Turk's ever seen sunlight in his life. Look at him, But I was listening to some stuff where they're talking about using beef tallow to if you do, you look at sunscreen and all the stuff that's in it. It's like, man, I think I'm going to stick with some beef tallow and some zinc oxide, mix it together, and see what happens. Because that's just bad news. But you are right. We are behind the 8 ball with all of this stuff that's just coming at us nonstop, destroying our bodies. Which I'm going to say it. This might get us banned. This is why I am a fan of Bobby Kennedy. Hopefully, burning the whole thing to the ground. Because I think it's just a big circle that's going on here. Okay, it's like it starts with the foods that we eat, the products that we consume that get us sick. Then that gets us sick, and then what happens? Then the pharmaceutical industry shows up. And name one person over 60, heck, over 40 in the United States. If you open up the mirror above their their sink in their bathroom, and it's just full of medications. I mean, my grandmother had all sorts of issues, and they had her on all these different medications, and I absolutely believe that is what caused her downfall and her Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And, excuse me. And all of this, thank you. All of this stuff that is just, it's just so bad. It is so bad. And the fact of it is if people don't take control of their own lives and start learning about what they're putting in their bodies, then just know that when you get into your 50s, 60s, 70s, and hopefully 80s, your life is going to suck, because you're going to be immobile. You're going to be loaded to the gills on every medicine that your doctor wants to give you. You're going to be in pain all the time. You're going to have inflammation. So it's just like, take control of your life. And why don't we segue that, John? We've talked about all these crazy drugs and all this stuff. Let's segue into some stuff that is actually good fat loss agents you can use.
One of the things we should address, 2 of the most common drugs that people are even taking now. And one is, you remember phentermine?
Is that fen?
Yeah, it's that. Basically, it's an appetite suppressant. It's still one of the most popularly prescribed drugs that they're using. And the other one is semaglutide. You know what that is? The Ozempic, right?
Ozempic, yeah.
Yeah, so there's 2 of them.
We all know the commercial, John. Ozempic,
Ozempic, yeah. But, I mean, so
Ozempic,
people, Ozempic.
Ozempic,
hey, man. Advertising, that's another thing RFK wants to get rid of, advertising for pharmaceuticals. It's not allowed in any other countries, but in the United States it is. You can advertise for pharmaceuticals. So, semaglutide is, there's certain ways you should take it and certain ways you shouldn't. And most people, if you see they're getting there's what's called the Ozempic face, and they're losing so much weight so fast that their face is getting sunken in. And Ozempic, like anything else, you have to be careful when you use it. Now, Ozempic is prescribed for type 2 diabetics, and Wegovy, I don't know if you know what the other one is, it's called Wegovy, and it was basically prescribed for weight loss. And Wegovy is a little bit more potent than Ozempic. In other words, they put a little more in it. And the difference is they're injectables, but now you can get them compounded. So the biggest complaint people had with Ozempic was you were losing more muscle than fat. And that's not a good thing, right? So what they did is people started doing what's called microdosing. They started taking the Ozempic and bringing it to a compounding pharmacy. Well, you get it, the compounding pharmacy has it, you don't take it there, and then they would compound it in a microdose with B12. So you wouldn't lose your appetite. You would still keep your appetite, but the Ozempic it wouldn't have such a drastic effect on you. And they say people are getting a lot less muscle wasting when they do the microdosing with the B12. And, Ozempic is a shot. It's not a pill. Everyone doesn't even realize that. I mean, you got to take a shot once a week. And I think they do have a pill version of it. I think it's called, it starts with Ribulus or something like that. It's a one pill a week or one pill a day. But I don't know if that works as good as, Wegovy and Ozempic. But, it basically, it helps regulate your blood sugar, and that's the whole point of it. But again, I would talk to your doctor about it. And if you want to get it from a compounding pharmacy, you need to go to an integrative medicine person, somebody that could have this compounded for you. Or if you look at if you go to here in San Diego, we have Scripps and Sharp. Sometimes they have an integrative medicine person on staff, or they're like an osteopath. And these people can prescribe compounding pharmacies. And the main thing you want to think about is if you're going to get these drugs, you don't want to have it compounded with sodium. It could be really bad. But also some of the side effects you got to look out for is if you have a thyroid cancer in your family, you definitely don't want to take it. So, because it can really cause problems there. So, so those are many things, you want to look out for if you have that.
I have a question. So when you take the semaglutide or the Ozempic, it just kills your appetite. Like that's fact. I actually a couple of years ago I did try it. I tried the semaglutide for just a couple of weeks, and I was like, what am I doing this for? I mean, I can control my appetite. And the thing that I noticed about it is that if it kills your appetite and you don't eat, we all know, hopefully we all know, if we don't know, here's a little lesson, that's going to slow your metabolism down. Because, it goes back to the days of the hunter-gatherer, right? I mean, you're telling your body on I hate to say, I don't want to say evolutionary level, but on a level that, our ancestors 2,000 years ago, they're saying, hey, there are no woolly mammoth out here. There's no nuts and berries. We got to slow the furnace down because we're going to die. So when you don't eat, it slows your metabolism. And that was the whole thing with the bodybuilding diet. I know, as you know, when they're trying to get lean, you want to eat every couple hours to fire up the thing. I did that too. I disagree with it now. It's just way too much digestion going on all day long. But at the same time, if you're trying to speed up your metabolism, if you don't eat, that's the worst thing you can do,
Yeah. And it's word to the wise, if you're going to do the typical bodybuilding diet, eat every 2.5 hours. Definitely don't drink water with your meal. Definitely chew your food, and definitely take digestive enzymes, because otherwise you're going to be passing gas. You're not even going to be digesting those proteins or those carbs and fats. And those are the three main things you got to think about. Too many people drink with their meals, and you're diluting all your digestive enzymes. So, and the other thing with Ozempic is people don't even realize it's expensive. It's like 15 grand a month if you're going to stay on it. If you get it through the doctor, if you don't have insurance or whatever, it's going to cost you 15 grand a month unless you're going to get it off, label from some other country on some website, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of things people don't realize when they get involved in these drugs. So, I mean, I just want to kind of bring that one up because I know that's real popular. I was talking about semaglutide, it's a peptide, right? And that's what's real popular right now. You hear all about BPC 157, TB 500, all these other peptides out there. But the problem is a lot of them are only done on animal studies. We haven't had any human studies done. So a lot of people are taking BPC 157 and all these other peptides, and they're taking small dosages, and they're almost becoming their own experiments, right? They're starting off with like 500 milligrams of like BPC 157 oral version, and they're slowly graduating up. And if they get a side effect, they back off a little bit. But that's the one thing about an oral version. In general, if you come off an oral, you aren't going to have long-lasting side effects. But the injectables are scary. It's like, you're shooting it right into your bloodstream. Hey, where did you get it? First of all, what's in that jar that you're injecting? Are you sure it's BPC 157? What are some of the carrier molecules in there? People always too, they don't realize is like all these drugs you get and you inject. So for example, remember when COVID was going on and they were talking about how can they fight it, and Trump said, well, can't we inject a cleaner in their body? And everybody turned it around on him and said, oh, he's saying to shoot disinfectant and
yeah,
chlorine in your body. He never said that. He said a cleaner. Well, he's right, because every single drug you take through injection has a cleaner in it, because they can't kill all the germs in it. So they put a cleaner in it, right? And a lot of them, like your testosterone and stuff like that, has a cleaner in it. And a lot of people can be allergic to that cleaner. And that's why you see some people get an injection and they have a reaction. They have anaphylaxis or whatever, and they just usually watch somebody for the first time. So, you got to be careful that whatever drug you're getting, especially from another country, Mexico, overseas, hey,
China.
China. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. So here's a crazy story about China. My wife's half Japanese, and her brother married a girl from China, and it's very unsanitary there, And I said, when you were there, Eric, what was one of the things that just kind of blew your mind? He says, people that go there, they don't even realize that you never eat from the street vendors. And I go, why? What do you mean? I said, they just cook weird stuff. He goes, well, not only that, he goes, they use recycled grilled oil. So in other words, the oil that you know what they do? It's called curb oil or something like that. So all the vendors sit on one curb, and if one guy's running low, he catches the curb oil coming from the stream downstream from the other vendors, and he just puts it in a jar. And then when he runs low, he takes the jar out and dumps it in, and people have no clue that it's curb oil, and you're eating all this trash. So, I mean, you don't know what people in like China and all these other countries are putting into their injectable, weight loss drugs. So that's why it's good we have, the FDA and all these regulating bodies to determine, if this is safe or not. And even them, I don't trust now after COVID,
Totally. Well, the FDA, I don't know if the supplement industry is even regulated by the FDA.
They're not.
I didn't think it was. Yeah. But that's crazy. Well, so for people that were listening that are like, okay, well, we don't know what they're talking about with peptides. Peptides are kind of like the latest fad thing, like you said, with the Ozempic and the BPC, and there's growth hormone, testosterone, Semarelin, all that different stuff that's coming out. And it's basically, is the best way to describe this, John, it's a sequence of amino acids that is injected to have our body's own natural response to it. So like, if you're injecting, let's just take growth hormone, for example. Let's say it's a sequence of 191 amino acids you're injecting that is causing the growth hormone to to cause the pituitary to spurt growth hormone like you would have when you were, 5 years old. Is that
so so a peptide is, if it's 40 amino acids or less in a sequence, then it's a peptide. If it's more than 40, it's considered a protein, like a full protein. So when you get a peptide, it's 40 or less. And so when you get, like, let's say, growth hormone, it's going to be 40 or less. If you're above that, it's a protein. So when you inject it in there, think about, if you got all these sequences, how many ways you can affect the body. If you got 40 or less peptides and you inject it directly into the bloodstream, right? So the lottery is 50 numbers. And what if you pick one number, 6 numbers right, you got 50 to 1,000,001 chance, right? So think of 40 peptides in your body, 40 like sequences, right? So, I mean, there's so many things out there that can affect your body just by changing two little amino acids in the 40 peptide sequence, right? You change 1, you change 2, you change 20. Everything is going to affect the body in a different way because it's all arranged that way. So you got to be, that's why they're coming up with so many different peptides, and they don't even know. A lot of it's just a complete crapshoot, right? And so you sit there and you say to yourself, okay, what am I taking here? There's not enough studies on them to have, a lot of security in knowing that what I'm taking is going to be okay. Growth hormone, insulin, those are peptides. They've been around for years. They know what they're doing. They see what they're doing. The dosages, but everything right now is kind of a crapshoot, especially injecting it. So a lot of my clients are asking me, what about this peptide? What about this? I'm like, listen, man, until they have an established test, not anecdotal, which is what's going around, I wouldn't do any of them, even the oral ones. I wouldn't do them. That's why they pulled all the BPC 157 off. You can't even get it anymore. They're really strict on it. Yeah.
Oh.
So you got to be careful. Even stem cells, there's been stories with stem cells, people don't even realize it. Like one guy was saying that, I can inject a stem cell in your eye and help you, overcome any blindness or make you see better, right? All these people had like glaucoma and things, and they injected several people in the eye with stem cells and they all went blind. So so it's crazy when you think about it. It's like, you got to have somebody that knows what they're doing. It's got to be thoroughly tested. And, in human studies, not like in a test tube, or with animals, it's like you want living organism. Animals is the first step. You know why so think about this too. People always say, we evolved from apes. Do you know why? If we evolved from apes, why do they test mice? Did you ever wonder that? Because we share more. Think about this. If we evolved from apes, we share more DNA with a mouse. So how do we evolve from apes? People don't even think about that. That's why we use mice, because we share more DNA. We share 99% of our DNA with mice, 98% with apes. So people didn't realize it. So how do we evolve from an ape, right? Why don't we evolve from a mouse?
That did it. Yeah. I'm going under my house right now, and I'm taking the mouse traps out because I'm not going to be part of slaughtering our very close cousin, the mouse. That's terrible.
That's why some of them are rats, right? There's some people that are rats.
There it is. There it is. Man, I tell you, I should tell my mom that. My mother is the biggest when it comes to mice, dude. I think that she could do like plyos. She could get up like 6 foot in the air, probably, at least if she saw one. I mean, we're talking blood curdling screams, the whole shebang. Wow. That is her thing. And then bats. Like, do you remember we went out to the lake, the Gunnersville Lake, with a bat thing? You were with us on one of those trips.
Holy cow, that was crazy.
Oh,
and
right.
I thought they were going to hit me, man. Those sonars are incredible. They come right at you and they fly away. It's like,
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I wonder how much rabies was in the air. When you think about bats, you always think of rabies, right?
Oh yeah, but to my mother, that would have been hundreds of thousands of flying mice, so it would have totally freaked her out. But well, let's look at. So I actually had a former student of mine hit me up and ask me a little bit about this fat loss stack that she was looking at, like a female fat loss stack. And I was looking at some of the ingredients, and I got a kick out of the marketing. It was like I wrote one down here. Thermocarnitine was one of them. It's like it's L-carnitine, but they're calling it thermocarnitine.
Yeah.
Like shredding green tea, all this stuff. But it was like the stuff I was looking at there. So like the fat loss stuff looked pretty much standard. It was like green tea, green coffee bean extract. What else have in it? It had apple cider vinegar. One that I haven't heard. Do you remember evodimine?
No,
Okay, evodimine was a lot. I believe that was in Hot Rocks as well. That and calcium pyruvate. But they were like CLA. So all the stuff that was in there, I'm looking at it, and it was just kind of like it just seems like fat loss stuff. They've got the ones that we've seen for the last 2-3 decades that's what I trust. Like, for example, when I see green tea, if I see green coffee bean extract, CLA, conjugated linoleic acid, things like that, I'm good with. But there were a lot of new things on there that I'd never heard of before. And that's just when I start getting a little bit nervous now.
Yeah.
Like, what are they up to now? It was,
a lot of them, I think, Mike, I think a lot of them are just, the market's been so inundated with so many different ones that they feel like they got to keep throwing out new ones because, well, this is the new sale. This is the latest and greatest, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you stick with your basic stuff, we know that caffeine works. It's a guaranteed caffeine works, right? We know creatine works to build muscle. So there's certain ones that have been tried and true when they're tested. The other one that, we're talking about caffeine. I mean, the studies even say in the research that, it's the best thing. And for me, the best way you got to look at how you take these things too. People don't even realize there's a certain way to take them. And for caffeine, the best thing to do is take it in the morning or right before your workout. Just like people always wonder, when's the best time to take creatine? And I found for me and for my wife, we take it within 15 minutes before working out, and it's in you. and it's ready to go. And what I do is I add a little bit of beet juice, because beets will also help stimulate your blood vessels to open up more. With
That's your nitric oxide. That's your NO.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. So, with that, and then, green tea is great because green tea has that EGCG in it, right? And that's also another way to help your fat loss. It inhibits enzymes. So what people don't realize with green tea and why they pair the two is because green tea, this ECGC, what it does is it down regulates the enzyme that breaks down caffeine, so it stays in your system longer. So when you take green tea with caffeine, it's going to stay in your system longer, and that's the whole point of it, right? So, Garcinia cambogia is what, was in Hydroxycut. And that stuff it's not anything fantastic, but, it helps. And these are all things that, really help.
Was that the HCA, John?
Yeah.
Is that what came from like the orange peel?
Yeah. HCA. Right.
Yep.
And what a lot of times what it does, though, is the HCA also helped with the serotonin levels. And what it did is the serotonin levels, it led to better feeling of, of just calm. Because when you're on a diet, you get kind of jittery, right? So it made you more calm and kind of chilled you out a little bit more and helps reduce your appetite. Whereas when you get overstimulated, you get a little hyper and it, it kind of winds you up a little. But it also, like you said, the HCA helps block the fat synthesis by it inhibits an enzyme. And I can't remember it was like some kind of citric citrate or something like that, but it reduces conversion of carbohydrates into fat. That was the whole point of the enzyme. So, I mean, everybody, again, before, I always find the best time to take a lot of these is right before a workout, or first thing in the morning.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That's what you did too, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so
that's how I do it.
Then you got glucomannan, which is an appetite suppressant. Glucomannan is basically a soluble fiber. It's from a plant, and that helps expand your stomach so you feel fuller. And so food takes a little longer to leave your gut, and it promotes, that feeling of fullness longer, holds off your hunger longer, absorbs more water, so it helps your gut. So, that's another thing, The other one that, go ahead, what?
Oh, I just was going to tell you, just because if you go on, I don't want to forget it, but I would have guys come in all the time. And, when I had the health food store up in West Hollywood, they'd be like, bro, I got to increase my appetite. I got to get bigger. What do I do? And I just thought back to like every time I went to a Chinese buffet, which I used to throw down quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'd be like, get your hands on some MSG. That'll crank your appetite up,
Yeah.
Like, so you eat at a Chinese buffet, you can barely walk out of there, but you're hungry like an hour and a half later. What is that all about?
Yeah, it's funny what you said with I want to get bigger. So there was a dude at the gym back in Chicago. He was a trainer, and he was a power lifter. He was a good sized guy, wasn't fat at all. And over about the course of a couple months, I've noticed, man, Mike's getting really big. He's like getting fat. And I'm like looking at him. And so I'm sitting in the break room and I could see out to his locker. And I would see him in between clients. I would see him go to his locker and I'd see him rummaging. And then I'd see his head go down. And then I would see him walk back out to his clients. So I'm sitting there one day and he walks into the back room and he sits down. I go, hey, man, I said, dude, I got to just tell you. I go, man, you look like, I don't mean this in a bad way. I said, you just look like you're putting weight on. Are you all right? He goes, oh. He goes, man, dude, he goes, I am so addicted to peanut butter. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, I'm telling you, every time in between clients, I take 2 big tablespoons and I just eat them. And I'm like, dude, that's why I would see you walk into your locker. He goes, I'm eating a whole jug of the Skippy peanut butter a day. He was chugging a whole jar of Skippy peanut butter every day with the peanuts in it. I'm telling you, he must have put, I'd say 45 to 50 pounds on in 2 months. Just eating peanut butter like that. So if you want to put weight on, eat peanut butter. It's insane.
It's crazy you said that because I hate to name drop, but he told me this. Do you remember Clark Bartram?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
he was Mr. Metrex guy.
He is he was the EAS guy. He was the EAS guy.
EAS, that was
they had
him.
Yeah, they had him walking for the evolution, and the final picture, when he's at the very end, he's shredded. But when he was doughy, I was like, Clark, man, what did you do? And that's exactly what he's saying. He's like, I was eating so many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, like pounding them. And when I was when I was teaching, again going back to I'm a flaming capitalist, I needed something to do after schools. I was running the pro shop at the local powerhouse gym. And the owner,
Right.
who was a plumber, big old nice guy, big old guy,
Mm-hmm.
he'd come in there and he'd always make shakes for everybody. And his like juice bar, it would be a packet of Myoplex, because remember back in the day it was all about packets of MRPs, meal replacement powders. It was either Metrex, Myoplex, it was something like that. He'd take like strawberry Myoplex, which is 340 calories, carbs, whole thing, dump it in there. 2 big tablespoons of regular, I'm not talking natural, just good old Jiffy peanut butter, and then milk and ice, whole milk and ice. And I was just looking at people drinking that. I'm like, why even do cardio? I mean, it's like you literally just erased an hour cardio session with 2 sips of that. Oh, it was, it was delicious. I tried it. And I was like, this tastes good, but I don't want any part of it, because I'm always battling trying to keep fat off. And I was like, I knew that was just a fat bomb,
Yeah. So a real quick funny story. Back in the, I first started working out back in a gym in about 1976, I think it was. 77. And it was a big meathead gym, right? And it was this kid I used to train with, big kid, giant. His name was Angelo. He was about 6'2". He was about 330, but he was like, he'd wear like a thermal shirt, and you couldn't even see his neck was like this. He was a big, strong guy. And after the gym, he'd always go, hey, you want to go to lunch? And I go, I can't today, blah, blah. So one day he asked me, I go, yeah, I'll go to lunch with you. And we go to a pizza parlor, and he orders like 2 large, like gigantic pizzas, right? I said, Ange, we're just having lunch. I go, I'm not going to probably eat probably a few pieces. He goes, oh, don't worry about it. I'll eat it. Dude, he ate 2.5 large pizzas. And I said, is this where you usually go for lunch? He goes, all the time. When you hear me saying I'm going to lunch, this is where I go. He was eating that much pizza. And he came up to me afterwards. He goes, I think I'm going to diet for a show. I go, you can't go to those pizza parlors anymore. So he dieted for like a week. And he came and he goes, not going in the show, dude. It's over. And I go, what happened? And he goes, I can't pass the pizza up, man. He was a big Italian dude, pizza was his thing. And so back in the day, it was pasta. It was, chicken, tuna, and it was not even whey protein. All we lived on was soy protein, and that's all we had. And that's what guys would do. They would just load up on food and all these pastas and chicken and tuna, and that's what we dieted on. It was crazy. And rice.
Was that back in the low fat days, where it's like carbs are okay, just don't have any fat? That was, because I know that was big in the 80s with like Snackwells and all that stuff.
So we first started, none of that was around. It was just eat good and eat a lot of food, But that started to like probably to be, like you said, the beginning of the 80s, when everybody started when Ansel Keys started the low fat craze, don't eat fat, eat carbs.
Why don't, real quick, because this is something definitely to go to a rabbit hole we can go down really quick. Talk about that Ansel Keys and what happened, how it switched everything over.
Well, he started, anybody can look him up on the internet. Ansel, I think it's Ansel, Ansel Keys. I'll see if I can find him on here. But what he did is he started the low fat, craze, and everybody eat carbs. And any doctor that spoke out against it was basically banned, because he was really big in the medical community. And so this guy, basically, they say, is single-handedly just destroyed America's health. And that's how this all became so popular, was from that era where people just started, no fat. And that's when all those like fats, additives like Olestra and all those things started to become really popular. And started. Do you
remember when Ruffles came out with that Ruffles with Olestra? I mean, it was like, of course, dude. Again, fat kid Mike over here is pounding a whole bag of them, and I must have been in the bathroom for 2.5 hours. I mean, that stuff is evil.
Brutal.
Evil.
It's brutal.
Yeah. Is it banned, by the way? Is it finally banned?
I think it is, because I know it got taken off the shelf for a while, because people were getting really bad, gastric distress from it. So.
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's brutal. So
that and then the Snackwells. I mean, I remember eating a whole box of Snackwells thinking I'm not going to get fat because it's low fat. It's low fat. Everything's low fat.
Yeah.
If you don't eat fat, you're not going to be fat. I mean, back then you didn't realize that fat is actually what creates testosterone, and which helps to create cholesterol, which, as you were saying the other day when we were talking, helps to heal the body. So it's just like, It's crazy when that happened. And I remember, I
Yeah.
think it was 91, 92 when I first got into it. That was low fat was the thing. It was like eat tuna, chicken, pasta, rice, just don't have any fat, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
terrible.
yeah. So crazy, man. You know, talking about fat again, I think in one of our other conversations we mentioned, you know, the reason you don't want to gain all this extra weight, especially when you're a guy, is it, you know, body fat secretes estrogen. It makes estrogen. And, you know, what people don't realize is too much estrogen also interferes with the absorption of thyroid. What's thyroid? It's your main, you know, hormone that regulates your metabolism. So think about excess estrogen in so many ways is basically making you, you know, get fat. And when you think of women, when they would take the pill, they would take, it's basically estrogen, right? And so a lot of women gain weight when they go on the pill. It's inhibiting their thyroid. It's making them, you know, be insulin insensitive. And it's just got so many bad effects of it. All, especially women, gosh, man, they have to have so many hormones in balance. You know, there's 3 estrogens and 3 different types of estrogen that you have to have in balance. And then you have progesterone and they have testosterone, and it's just so many things that come into play with women, and they're at different levels during different cycles, and it's just hard being a woman to try and balance.
John, you're making me not want to transition, man. I was thinking for a minute, maybe that'd be the
way to go. Oh my gosh.
There'll be no transitioning here. But hey, so like before we wrap this up, because we're getting close here, we're at the hour mark. But you know, just for people that are listening, like I just want to talk about, like, you know, when they look at a fat loss supplement, what to look for. And you just got to realize that, you know, the majority of them are going to have caffeine in there. But, you know, some of the other stuff along the way, I'm telling you, I've always been a huge fan of anytime I see like the cayenne pepper or the capsaicin in there.
Yeah.
You know, it's really good to have like that hot pepper in there. And you don't want to do it where it's going to burn your throat. But like what I called it my magic tea, Mike's magic tea. What I would do is I would take the matcha, the green tea extract, and I'd take a gallon of water. I'd throw that in there. Then I'd throw in just a little bit of that really highly potent cayenne pepper capsaicin. And I could, you know, just taste it a little bit on your tongue, but it would make me sweat. And then I would add in some because I like lemon and tea. I would add it for flavor wise and for, you know, muscle sparing, I guess you would say. I'd add in some some lemon essential aminos, and I mix it up. So basically like a lemon green tea with a little bit of a bite to it, and just sip on that all day long. And I actually, like, when I would do that consistently, I did get really good results. So, you know, green tea, capsaicin. I mean, I'm sure you've taken CLA before. That really didn't do much. I didn't notice.
Conjugated linoleic acid,
Yeah, I didn't notice either. I mean, studies show that it's good if you take it over time, but it's not enough that I'm going to mess with it.
Yeah, realize the majority of the supplements, excluding caffeine and green tea, you're not going to see drastic changes. They're only going to see changes, and they're going to be small if you're already lean. A lot of these things you really won't notice much. It's going to be diet. The people that really notice things from certain supplements are like bodybuilders that are dieting. And like, I remember vanadyl sulfate was really popular because it really worked. A lot of bodybuilders were using it. Remember vanadyl sulfate? That's the one everybody should look up. The other one was like berberine.
That was the first supplement I ever took, and we got it from Sport Pharma. Remember Sport Pharma?
Yeah,
they made Promax bars. And I remember myself, and I was in college, so it was a big deal. We ordered it, and we were like, all right, do you think it's like in Kansas now? Like, is it making it to, you know, on its way to Ohio? You know, we're like, when's it going to get here? And we got here, and we were all like, this is like, I'm looking at it like I just got D-ball or something like that. I'm like, we've got vanadyl sulfate, so let's take this and eat a baked potato. Dude, I got a massive pump. But no,
Optimum Nutrition had a really good one too. Optimum Nutrition, to give somebody a plug. I used to do work for them, but they had a really good vanadyl. And the other thing too is chromium picolinate. I'll tell you right now, this stuff works. And the reason why is I used to work for a company called Nutrisystems. You remember them? So right when I got out of college, they were a weight loss clinic. And what I did, I was a counselor. And my degree at the time, I had just finished, was exercise physiology, minor in nutrition. And I was reading a lot about chromium at the time. And so these people would come in and they would have blood sugar problems and blood pressure problems. And they didn't know what to do. They were losing the weight. And I said, it's your sugar. You got to get your blood sugar stabilized. I try chromium. And I would give them the chromium picolinate. I would show them the bottle and they would go buy it. And the majority of people would come back and say, man, it's really helped my blood sugar out. Thank you so much. So, I mean, it's all anecdotal for me at the time because it were just my clients I was trying it on. And so, but if you look at the studies, it really shows it does work. So that's a good one. The other one's berberine. I think berberine is like, it's like the natural form of metformin, so to speak. You know what metformin is, right? So it's original, one of diabetic medicines. And they say that metformin, a lot of people use it for anti-aging and things like that as well. But to say berberine is, it's very good as far as a natural supplement to help regulate blood sugar and things like that.
Cinnamon bark extract is good too.
Cinnamon is good. So all these things, taken in in the right amounts on the right diet with the right amount of calorie restriction, you're going to see they're going to help. They don't help with someone that's eating like a slob. You're not going to take berberine and chromium, still eating horribly, and see any difference. You're not. It's for the person that's on a strict diet, that's really eating right and has the right amount of calorie restriction. These little things are going to give you that little push over the edge. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was on a kick for a while there with the glucose disposal agents. It was always Vanadyl, chromium, cinnamon, and then alpha lipoic acid. That was the other one.
Yeah. Alpha lipoic acid is another one. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was this company that I worked with for a little bit, AI Sports Nutrition. They had a product called Glycobol, and actually did a commercial for them. There was I did this movie short where I was playing the police detective, like chewing out my detectives. And I was the police captain. I was the captain chewing out the detectives. And the whole gig was as I'd eat donuts all day. Now, John, this was the greatest. This was the greatest and worst day of my life, because I think that day I ate 12 donuts. And I mean, I made sure I got the big one so it looked good on camera. But I mean, again, I just was sitting there just pounding them all day. But I was like, all right, and now I'm going to take Glycobol. So like literally a glucose disposal agent versus 12 donuts is like shooting a BB gun at a freight train. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. Yeah.
But I'm telling myself, I'm like, it's okay. I'll just double up on Glycobol. I'll be okay. I felt like dirt for 3 days after that. Oh, it was horrible.
Dude.
But
you're like me, man. When you get on a kick of something that you like, it's like, it's all over with. For me, it's like the sweets too. Like I remember I used to have a sales job after I left the police department, and they had the vendors would come in that would wanted the business from the company I worked for. And they had the counter behind me where they would all drop food off. And the one guy would bring bagels from Einstein Bagels, and he would bring in the cinnamon bagel, big fat one, super warm. And dude, I ate one of those cinnamon sugar coated bagels and I could not stop. I must have had probably 12 of them. And I was so bloated and so messed up after that, but they were so good because they were warm and mushy and just, I'm thinking of them right now. They're driving me nuts. But like an addict, I know I would be an addict if I was on a drug, because when I find something I like, I just go overboard. And I know you do too, man. I've seen you attack that Korean barbecue.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, it's funny. Hey, people that are listening in won't be able to see what you're doing, but ladies and gentlemen, John Turk has discovered how to manage his chocolate addiction. Show him, John. Your little, instead of getting a chocolate bar now, for those of you that aren't watching, I
get these little packets. That way it limits me. I think that, I'm only going to eat like one, and then one turns into two, then one turns into 5.
Oh, of course. Oh, for those people that are just listening and not watching, he's got those little tiny Ghirardelli squares, and he just held up like 5 of them that are empty. Dude, I remember when you came out to the house. What was it? 2 years ago. I was trying to be hospitable, so I'm like, well, I'm gonna go get a case of pure protein bars because I really like protein bars. I got them for you, so you can eat all you want. But what was it? A case of 24. You and Julia here for what, 2 or 3 days, and I think there was like 1 lemon bar left, and that was it.
Yeah. God, man, dude. You know what? When Julie and I first started dating, I've been addicted to those pure proteins for a while. I got off of them though, and I got off of them for number one reason. That says on the back on the wrapper, it says this is a genetically engineered food, and I went, okay, no more. Yeah, and I just got off them. But anyways, I decided, I wasn't going to eat them. But going back to when Julie and I first met, I was so in love with those protein bars. I would eat them before bed. And one day I woke up and she rolls over and she's like laughing. I go, what? You got a pure protein bar stuck to your forehead. I had the wrapper stuck to my forehead. And I'm like, oh man, I know I got a problem. If they're sticking to my head in the middle of the night, man.
It's time to cut the cord on those. That is funny.
So big. I was so bad with those things. And
Yeah.
I mean, there'd be a period of time, 6 of them a day I would eat. I would eat 6 pure protein bars in a day. That's crazy.
That is well. All right, so I'm gonna give I'm gonna give a little story here that
All right.
maybe hopefully I'm not gonna go out of bounds here, but the truth being told, when it comes to fat loss things. So when I worked at the Powerhouse, I had an unlimited supply of like protein bars because I got in really good with a sales rep. So whenever they go on sale, like this was like Bo Jackson came out with, he called it Bo Better Bars. I called it the Mo
Yeah,
Better
yeah, yeah.
Bars. But
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah,
like
yeah.
when no one bought them, they were horrible. I gave like a couple cases of them to a buddy of mine. He actually lost a bunch of weight. He just eat like 2 Bo Better bars a day, but they were like a buck a case, or it'd be a buck for 12 of them. So I would have all these bars. He'd call me up like,
A
"Hey man, I
buck
got
for 12?
yeah." Like, do you remember the Dr. Diet Carb bars? All
Yeah,
those
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, he'd be like, "Dude, I give you a box of bars for $1." And I was like, "John,
Wow.
this would have been your dream come true." So I'm like, "All right." So I would buy all those and I would keep them, and I'd keep them on my desk at school. Like you'd open up one of my drawers at my desk when I was teaching, and I'd probably have 250 protein bars there just that I'd be able to eat all day long. Well, then of course
Wow.
I got in a little bit of trouble for this for a minute, because then all the football players wouldn't go talk to the football coaches. They'd come talk to me, and they'd be like, "Hey,
Right.
Mr. Foster, I'm trying to get bigger. What do I do?" Because I'm sitting there a lot bigger than their coaches. And I'd be like, "Well, I wouldn't eat school lunch if I were you, because you're not going to get bigger doing that. What do I do?" And I was like, "Hey, I got protein bars here, buck a bar." So I had a little enterprise going on, right?
Yeah, sure, man. That's a good
But
idea.
I mean, hey, at the end of the day, though, man, in my defense, like I wasn't doing it. I wasn't doing it to make tons of money, which I didn't. But I felt bad because these kids want to get, they want to get in shape for football. They want to gain weight,
Yeah.
and they're going down there and it's like pizza, French fries, and chocolate milk. And I'm like, man, just grab a bar, So
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
that being said, do you remember when Dr. Diet came out with those big, like symphony type bars? It wasn't a protein bar. It was the chocolate bar, the sugar-free chocolate bar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
Almost as good as the Detour bar, the first Detour bar. You remember those bars?
Oh, the
dude.
first Detour
It
bars
was a Snickers bar completely.
It was a Snickers bar with protein. It was
Yeah.
amazing. But
It
it was the big black chocolate bar, like a symphony, and each one had 16 little squares on those, right? Well, I didn't know at the time, but it was sweetened with maltitol. You know what maltitol is, right?
Oh, dude, don't even tell me. I know. I can't
Well, for
take
those
it,
that
man.
don't know, maltitol is a baby laxative. So
Yeah.
So make a long story short, I have in my house, I've got the equivalent of bars that Tony Montana would have had to cocaine, right? Like I just had boxes and cases of bars at any given time. I probably had 1,500 bars at my house, right? So I just got all these protein bars everywhere. And I had like 3 cases of these Dr. Diet bars, right? So this is right at the time, it was the summertime, and it was the second week of summer, and I snapped my Achilles tendon, right? So
I remember you telling me.
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. And the thing of it is, the worst part is like the itch of the scar, right?
Yeah.
So it was just like, and Michigan, for those that don't know Michigan in the summertime gets pretty humid. And I did not have, I didn't have any air conditioning in my house at the time.
My God.
Later on I did, but it was just the mending flesh, the itch. You just want to dig your fingers into. It was horrible.
Right.
So then the light bulb goes up above my head and I look over and I'm like, there's the box of those Dr. Diet Carb Symphony bars. So I went and I got a big old tub of peanut butter and I grabbed literally a case of 12 of those things, sat down, and I just pulled it out and I break off, because it came in rows of 4. There were 16 servings total. I'd break out a row of 4, dip it in the peanut butter, and I was like, this is the greatest experience of my life. Well, going back to what maltitol is a baby laxative. And every one of those squares of 16, every one of them was a serving.
Wow.
Each tiny little. So I ate 3 bars. So it's 16 times 3 is what?
Oh, 30, my gosh.
40, 6, 12, 8,
48
48.
servings.
Yeah, 48 servings of maltitol, and God knows how much peanut butter.
Oh,
and John, I can't walk. I mean, I literally can't put any pressure on there. So, of course, I'm sitting there. Everything's good. I didn't even know about the maltitol. Again, I didn't know what it was at the time. I think I was playing Xbox or something, old school Halo. I'm like, this is pretty cool, too. Everything's great. Yeah. My life is great, And then all of a sudden, that gurgle happened, like Harry Dunn and then Dumb and Dumber, the gurgle.
Yes.
And I was like,
yeah.
So
Turbo Lax.
Yep. For fast, effective relief. So I hobble myself into the bathroom, and all I got to tell you is I'm going to try not to make it graphic for our listeners out there, but I always do my movie quotes. Do you remember Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon 2 when he's sitting on the toilet and discovers there's a bomb on there, so he doesn't move? And he's been sitting on the toilet all night long, and his legs go numb, and Mel Gibson has to like pull him into the bathtub for the explosion to happen. I was in that bathtub all night long to the point where my legs were completely numb. So not only are my legs numb, I can't put any pressure on my Achilles. Oh, it was literally, it's a night that will go down in infamy.
You didn't throw a clot. You're lucky you didn't throw a clot. You had surgery, all that blood, and now you pushed all that blood down to your legs. Man, you got lucky.
I got that was the dumb, again, I don't want to say it's the dumbest thing I ever did, because I didn't know. Like, if I knew, if I had the munchies and I'm like, I don't care, I'm pounding Dr. Diet carb bars, then shame on me. But I was just like, oh, cool, they're sugar free. I'm not going to be able to exercise that hard for the next 8 weeks or whatever it is. This is all going to work out. Oh no, it was,
dude, I can't believe
horrific.
You had that much.
Oh my gosh, John. So just that being said, kids,
that would destroy me. I don't even think I could recover from that after.
It was oh my gosh, it was miserable. It was pure misery. So anyway, I guess the lesson to be learned for our listeners out there is, if you've got something that's sugar free and you're all excited about it, just look on the back, and anything that ends with an all, maltol, erythritol, any of that stuff, just heed my warning. Bad things can happen if you eat too much.
Sugar alcohol, man. Sugar alcohol.
They'll go through you. Yeah. But well, hey, before we get finished here, I do want to just take a quick second, give a little bit of love to the folks that make this possible. Want to start off with our man Justin Leonard. John, you want to tell us about Justin real quick?
Yeah, actually, I had lunch with him today. He was out in San Diego. His family lives in Temecula, just right down the road to me, and we met out and had a little lunch, and I had a good time. And he's got a good story. Maybe one day we'll have him on the show and talk about what he's been through. So it was a good time. And then Justin is a guy that's he's worked with Jim Carrey. I didn't know that. He's worked with a lot of celebrities and designing a lot of their advertisements, logos, and things that they do on the side, like charities and things like that. So he's pretty tight in dude. Yeah. So he's good at what he does. Obviously, see our logo looks pretty decent. He didn't do the angel coming in, you'll see at the end here with the cross, but he did our intro logo, and he did our actual logo itself. He did our intro. He had our intro logo. And he did two of them. He did our original logo, which is on our banner, and then he did the angel logo. So he's he does good work. And also that whole podcast layout he did for us. It took time, man. He did a lot of stuff on that, so it made sense. That's what he does for a living. So he could tell us what he does for a living. But good guy, man, Justin Leonard.
Well, good deal. So we're going to plug him, and then I also want to plug Ultimate Windows and Doors Huntsville, which, if you're looking for replacement windows, they've been in business for more than 18 years, an A+ with the Better Business Bureau, and VJD WebWorks. If you're looking for professional, affordable web design, give VJD WebWorks a call, or actually, I guess an email would be what we'd say these days. That'd have been pre-internet. Like, give us a call. No, give us an email. So that'd be vjdwebworks.com, and the Ultimate Windows is ultimatewindowshuntsville.com. So check out our sponsors, and thanks everybody for listening in on this chat on some of the craziness that goes on in the fat loss industry. All right, I'm Michael Foster. That's John Turk. Thanks for listening.